Good afternoon, and peace be upon you. My name is Nimco Bilale, and I'm a board member with CAIR Washington. With the Council on American Islamic Relations, the Washington State chapter. It is my honor to welcome you to part 2 of CAIR Washington's 2021 virtual gala, Our Community, Our Strength. On behalf of the entire CAIR team, I thank you for joining us and welcome you to this program with the greeting, Assalamu alaikum. In English, it means may peace be upon you. We are here because of you and your support, as well as the incredible work of our dedicated staff and volunteers. I'd like to take a moment to thank all of our leaders who are here with us this afternoon. It goes without saying that this year has been difficult. Despite the challenges, I'm particularly grateful that so many of us at CAIR Washington have pushed on issues of injustice and to be anti-racist in all ways. If this year has taught me anything, it is to be grateful. I'm grateful for and inspired by the incredible work at the CAIR Washington team, at the CAIR Washington chapter, and what they've accomplished across the state, despite the unprecedented challenges that are around us. You will get a chance to hear about that work today from so many of us. I'm proud of what our community has been able to accomplish despite the upticks of attacks on our mosques. Anti-Muslim hate surrounding us, the American Muslim community has responded in a way that shows our humanity, dignity, and pride as American Muslims. In 2020, more Muslims than ever ran for public office in our state, and we are proud to say that many of them were successful. Congratulations to you all. I can't end my introductory remarks without thanking my amazing colleagues at the CAIR Washington board. We have board president Osama Hamdan, board treasurer Ahmed Gaya, board member Adasha Turner, Yusra Hamidani, and Sumaya Wahid. We also have our amazing Youth Advisory Council board members, Noor Amir, Alina Harris, Mariam Harris, Sarah Khan, and Shayma Khan. Thank you for your endless dedication and commitment to CAIR Washington and our community. And again, we thank you all for having our back and supporting us for all these years so that we can continue to do the important work of supporting you. We pray that you are staying safe, healthy, and well in these ever-changing times. Thank you for joining us, and we hope you enjoy the wonderful program we have for you this afternoon. And to continue our program, we're going to start with a conversation with our Youth Advisory Council members. I'd like to welcome our first two guests. Mariam Harris is a third-year public health student at the University of Washington in Seattle. She has been significantly involved in the local Muslim community throughout high school as a Sunday school teacher and youth group leader, and is currently serving as a member of CAIR's Youth Advisory Committee, as well as vice president of the Muslim Student Association at the University of Washington. We also have Mariam Kazmi. You heard that, we have two Mariams in the house. Mariam Kazmi is a high school junior serving as a member of CAIR Washington's Youth Advisory Committee, where she works alongside her team to engage Muslim youth in the community. She's currently involved in her high school's journalism and debate clubs and enjoys writing and debating. Mariam believes in the power of inspiring Muslim youth to make an impact in their communities and is excited to achieve this by working with CAIR. Mariam and Mariam, welcome. Assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum assalam. Thank you for having us.
Of course. So to start, tell us a little bit about yourselves and how you became involved with the Youth Advisory Committee.
All right, I guess I can start a little bit. So as mentioned in my bio, I'm a public health student at the University of Washington in Seattle. I have been kind of interested in matters of social justice kind of throughout high school, where I was involved in a lot of different leadership groups and, the Black Student Union as like a member. And I kind of understood the importance of that. And I was also kind of wanting to implement that on my own Muslim identity. And so I looked for ways to kind of expand my leadership and my work to help the Muslim community more, which kind of led to my work in MSA and kind of helping my own local community here in North Seattle. And so I became involved with the YAC because it felt like such a good fit to kind of get that sort of experience and to kind of understand like the work that goes behind all of this work in these organizations like CAIR, which specifically work to improve the Muslim community. And I thought that was really cool, and so I was really interested in joining, and alhamdulillah I got in.
Fantastic. Mariam, Kazmi?
Yeah, so assalamu alaikum. My name is Mariam, and I'm currently a junior in high school. And I actually heard about the opportunity to join CAIR Washington's Youth Advisory Committee through a WhatsApp chat sent by a member of my mosque. And I really believe in the power that, although my mosque is small, it's really, really connected. So I really try to use the resources that my mosque offers. And I looked into what the YAC does, what CAIR Washington does, and I realized that CAIR's work is the type of work that I really enjoy. I feel like CAIR is making change, and I enjoy and I believe in direct action through advocacy, lobbying, and simply providing opportunities to Muslims in the area to excel. These are goals that I truly believe in, and I really wanted to be a part in achieving these goals. So I applied, I got in, and I'm here today.
Amazing. We're so glad you're here. So this question's for Mariam H. Could you tell us about the Youth Advisory Committee? What do you all do? Give us a little bit of a background.
So the Youth Advisory Committee is a pretty recent part of CAIR. We actually started our first cohort last year during the pandemic, and I was fortunate enough to be part of last year's cohort as well as this year's cohort. So I'm really happy to say that we have made some progress on, kind of improving youth engagement throughout the state. We've done a Muslim professional career night to kind of get students connected to professionals in industries that they want to do, as we know that it's so important to have that pipeline to increase Muslim success in different industries and professions. We've also had halaqas or Islamic lectures about how to balance life as a student and as a practicing Muslim, especially during the month of Ramadan, where there's an emphasis on piety and personal action. We've also had youth roundtable discussions in which we talked about different issues that surround the topic of Muslim youth identities, such as media representation, struggles to practice your own faith in high school or like the school system, and other things that impact Muslim youth specifically. And so that's kind of what we've done so far, and we look forward to doing similar things but also expanding on that in new contexts in this year's cohort.
Thank you. And Mariam?
Yeah, for sure. So this year, we're really focused on connection. So the YAC really wants to focus on building a Muslim community, and we especially want to establish this sort of a sense of community and connection within the Muslim youth. So we have plans to allow Muslim youth to discover their potential and find that really they can succeed. And we hope to do this through more college and career nights. We hope to have events in which we can allow Muslim youth in the area or nationally to figure out how they can gain financial aid so that post-secondary education becomes possible so that they can find more success in the future. And additionally, we want to create programs where Muslim youth are able to help each other and connect with each other. More roundtable discussions are really what we're looking for here. Additionally, we really want Muslim youth to become involved in grassroots change and advocacy and become involved in that sort of process. This allows them to feel what it's like to be Muslim in the United States and really fight for change, fight for rights, and we can accomplish this through grassroots work. And so we really want to have the Muslim youth community here in Washington be involved in that.
You all are doing such great work. I'm so excited to hear about everything you're doing. This question is actually for both of you. Why do you think it's important for Muslim youth to be involved in their community and with organizations like CAIR Washington?
All right, I can take the lead on that if Mariam's okay with that. I think it's very important because, the old saying goes that youth are our future and all that, and it seems very cliche, very, you've heard it a lot, many times, especially kids, they're like, yeah, we get it. But it really is very important that the youth are, they are an integrated part of our future, and the work that they do will impact the future generations and generations after that, not just us and our kids, So And especially, there's a lot of issues that affect the Muslim community, but so much of that is concentrated in the youth because they're the ones that are usually more, outside of the home or like in unfamiliar territory because they're just learning how to navigate society as a young person, and then that too as a Muslim. So it's really, kind of tough because American society is very multifaceted and there's different aspects of it for different community members, but youth have their own, special set of problems. So it's so important that you have a strong connection to your youth and that you have involvement because there's so many, like mashallah, there's so many good organizations and stuff that have a particular emphasis on youth, and that's why they get such good engagement. And then those institutions and those, communities of Muslims tend to do much better to stay connected in the long run because of that emphasis. So I think CAIR is doing such a good job in, opening more avenues for youth to kind of engage with this organization and, legal, social policy work. And I think it's really, necessary for us if we're gonna, stay rooted as a successful community in America.
Thank you. Mariam?
Yeah,
Mariam,
I completely agree with that. And honestly, on a more personal level, it's really helping getting involved in an organization such as CAIR is really helpful in allowing Muslim youth to figure out more a sense of identity. Like, what is it like to be a Muslim youth here in the United States? What are the benefits and burdens that come with that? And really, how can your work, your individual work on an individual level lead to that change? And CAIR really allows, through grassroots work, through advocacy, through leading in change, it allows Muslim youth to engage in the change and be a part of that change and recognize, what change needs to come to future generations of Muslims in America. And it's really helpful for young Muslims to be involved in organizations such as CAIR so that they recognize what they have to do as they become older, what is necessary to change, the future of Muslims here in America. And that's really in the hands of the youth. So that's why I feel it's really important for Muslim youth to become involved and really understand what their community needs and how they can bring that change to their community.
absolutely. Thank you so much. And for my last question, as we wrap up this part, is if a young person's interested in joining the Youth Advisory Committee, what should they do? How can they get connected?
So personally, this is a little embarrassing, but I definitely stalked CAIR Washington social media and websites more than once on occasion, which sounds funny, but it actually did, really help me because, just looking up organizations and reaching out to people, like you see contact information for many of the members, like you might feel shy at first, but it's just a good step to just go ahead and email them asking about opportunities. A very important part of success is networking and establishing connections with professionals and peers. So it's really, if you want to join the YAC, follow up with CAIR Washington, stay updated on their news and information, and inshallah you'll get a lot of resources, not just to be involved, but to kind of access the services that they provide us as well.
Thank you, Mariam. Thank you both, Mariams, actually, for this really robust conversation. It was an inspiration to hear about all the work that you all have done so far, and excited to see what you all accomplish in the next years and the years to come. Thank you so much for your time, Mariam and Mariam.
Thank you so much. We appreciate you having us.
Absolutely. Assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum assalam.
So for our next part, as you know, I mentioned earlier, 2021 has been a year of challenges, but it has also been a year of great progress for our community, where we showed our strength in the face of adversity, of endurance, and of patience. I'd like to welcome CAIR Washington's Executive Director, Imran Siddiqui, to tell you about the importance of tonight and why it is so important for you to support CAIR Washington's work so that 2022 is even more successful for us, inshallah. We're going to show you a brief video of the work that CAIR Washington has done this year, from civil rights, fighting Islamophobia, COVID-19, and the Afghan refugee crisis. Welcome, Imran. Take it away.
Thank you so much, Nimco. Alhamdulillah wa salatu wa salam ala Rasulullah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. My dear brothers and sisters who are tuning in from Washington State and beyond. That was an amazing conversation with just some of our youth. And so that really just highlights just how important the work that CAIR Washington does and how important nurturing this next generation of folks who are coming up from our community is. But we'll talk about that a little bit later. But thank you so much to everybody who's here today with us, and especially like Dr. West, who's joining us from Los Angeles as well. And thank you to our sponsors for this event, and our great partners from across the state of Washington and beyond. I did want to start off with a quick message from our partners, Helping Hand for Relief and Development and ACLU of Washington, two great organizations who make this world a better place and who have been kind sponsors for this event. So let's go ahead and play short messages by them, and I'll come back here.
When you witness the suffering of another, you can only do one of two things. You can either look away, or you can lend a helping hand. When we work together to address the needs of others, we don't just provide relief, but we empower the society to stand back up on its feet, because what people really want is not your charity, but opportunity to grow and thrive and improve the world they live in. Our dollars can change history, change the destinies of generations. Find out how at hhrd.org.
Good morning to everybody. A warm welcome here from Brussels. A welcome to our Info Day. Info Day deals now with the topics on the work program 2022. It concerns the cluster digital industry and space. We have received 3 days of intensive discussions. We hope we get many questions that we asked yes by the from DG Research Innovation. Afterwards, it will be Ulla Engelmann.
All right. Just thank you so much, Katie, for playing that. So yeah, once again, thank you for being here today. And we know why we're all here today, and that's to support the great work that CAIR Washington does for our community. Within the last few months, we've had a lot of issues in terms of masajid being targeted, whether it's Tacoma with their arson. We're going to be hearing from their executive director today and recognizing their community resilience. And then we've had a burglary in Mount Lake Terrace, Washington as well. And then we had an explosive device go off outside of the Islamic Center of Olympia. And in just the past few days across the country, we've had prayer spaces target at the Arizona State University Muslim Students Association, and we've had an attempted arson of a mosque in Albuquerque, New Mexico as well. So it's important to have an event like this, especially during this time, because Islamophobia and bigotry that we face here is directly connected to the violence that this country has exported across the rest of the world. We cannot forget the violence that our brothers and sisters in India, Kashmir, the Rohingya, the Uyghur, and countless others have endured because of normalized Islamophobia. Looking back at 2014, Gaza was in the midst of being bombarded. I happened to be working in Washington, D.C. at that time. And during this bombardment, my brother-in-law actually lost 9 of his family members in an instant, as well as over 2,000 innocent Palestinians. And I remember marching in the streets as the media and countless talking heads equivocated and tried to rationalize the deaths and human rights violations that were taking place. Who is going to be that voice for us in the media? Who is going to be that voice for us in academia who stands up against this tide of injustice? As I turn the corner marching with thousands of people, who do I see passing me marching on behalf of our Palestinian brothers and sisters? None other than Dr. Cornel West, out in the streets with the rest of us. He's always been that strong voice for the marginalized and oppressed, and there's no other person that I would rather have speaking today than him. So stay tuned for that in just a few minutes. I'll be back a little bit later to talk to you about how you can help with our work. But for now, I want to kick it to our brand new Deputy Executive Director, Amanda Azad, who's joining us from the ACLU of Arizona, where she was a great collaborator with me. And she'll be talking a little bit more about the Islamic Center of Tacoma and recognizing them for their great resilience. So Amanda.
Thanks, Imran. Assalamu alaikum, everyone. Hello, and thank you for joining us today. My name is Amanda Azad, and as Imran mentioned, I'm the new Deputy Executive Director at CAIR Washington. I'm coming from a background of legal and policy work, most recently working at the ACLU, an awesome fellow civil rights organization. And I'm thrilled now to be joining CAIR Washington team. The Washington state community is thriving, and I'm excited to join it. I also want to make sure to give a big shout out to the ACLU of Washington for being our sponsors today and for all the awesome work that they're doing for our communities. Here at CAIR Washington, we are excited about all of the advocacy work that will be happening in 2022. But for now, we will be reflecting on 2021 and how much we have accomplished. And right at this moment, I want to present an award for a special community, a community that has overcome so much this year. In the last few months, as Imran mentioned, and as you all know, there have been numerous attacks against places of worship. Several masjids and a Sikh temple in Washington state were attacked. This has been a really difficult time for many of those in these communities. Today, we want to acknowledge the Islamic Center of Tacoma with our Community Resilience Award, because this community had their masjid attacked and burned this fall, but overcame such a difficult moment and grew yet even stronger. The fire caused significant damage to the building, so much so that worshipers could not pray there, children could not learn there, they could not come together as a congregation. It was an awful moment. This was a hub for the community in Tacoma, the only masjid for many miles, home to several hundred people who attended Friday prayers weekly. But alhamdulillah, the community was strong and was supported by others. Other faith communities reached out and provided spaces for worship. And the Muslim community there was very resilient in the face of such tremendous stress and destruction. The community demonstrated so much strength and love, and that's why they are receiving this award today. So I want to thank the Executive Director of the Islamic Center of Tacoma, Dr. Abdul Hakim Mohammed, for accepting this award on behalf of the Islamic Center, and also for being a great leader during these difficult times. Please take the virtual stage. Thank you.
Thank you, Amanda. I'd like to thank CAIR Washington and everybody that stood with us here in Tacoma. Obviously, not wanting to get into the details of what happened because the news already covered it. In the case, the courtrooms will follow for the suspect had been apprehended. But there's a lot of good things that came out of this. One of the most fascinating things is that over 150 institutions of faith came together in supporting unity and solidarity and supporting the Islamic Center of Tacoma. Funds and donations are coming from across the country and abroad. I think our future is always going to be better. One thing we need to remember that love and unity is actually what the majority of people believe in. And those who have hate in them of all sorts, bigotry or Islamophobia, or whatever it is that these anomalies are coming from, they're the minorities. Yes, in their minds that the world should be like them, but the world is resilient in refusing. And I saw that on a personal level here in Tacoma, where people from all folds and all segments of the society came together and said no to hate and no to Islamophobia. CAIR is crucial for this message. I've worked with CAIR for the last, I don't know, since the first day that I was announced CAIR, I've been involved. And every year is a new challenge, but every year CAIR is up to that challenge. I'm honored to be here. I'm grateful for the honor that CAIR is showing us today. I'm also grateful for being virtually on the same stage with Dr. West. That is something my kids are going to get a kick out of it. And thank you to all. And I appreciate you having me here on behalf of the Islamic Center.
Thank you so much, Amanda and Dr. Abdul Hakim, and congratulations to the Islamic Center of Tacoma. For this part of the program, we have a very special guest. This is the moment that we have been waiting for. We are honored, truly blessed to have Dr. Cornel West, one of America's foremost intellectuals, with us this afternoon. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Cornel West. Brother Cornel West, welcome. To give a little background, not that he needs an introduction, Dr. Cornel West is the Dietrich Bonhoeffer Chair at Union Theological Seminary. Dr. West teaches on the works of Dietrich Bonhoeffer, as well as on courses in philosophy of religion, African-American critical thought, and a wide range of subjects, including, but by no means limited to, the classics, philosophy, cultural theory, literature, and music. Dr. West is the former professor of the practice of public philosophy at Harvard University and professor emeritus at Princeton University. Cornel West graduated magna cum laude from Harvard in 3 years and obtained his MA and PhD in philosophy at Princeton University. He has written over 20 books and has edited 13. He is best known for his classics, Race Matters and Democracy Matters, and for his memoir, Brother West, Living and Loving Out Loud. His most recent book, Black Prophetic Fire, offers an unflinching look at 19th and 20th century African-American leaders and their visionary legacies. Dr. West is a frequent guest on The Bill Maher Show, CNN, C-SPAN, and Democracy Now! He has a passion to communicate to a vast variety of publics in order to keep alive in the legacy of Martin Luther King Jr., a legacy of telling the truth and bearing witness to love and justice. Welcome, Dr. West.
I am so very blessed to be here, my dear sister Nemco, or Professor Nemco, I want to say, absolutely. But I do want to salute Brother Imran, who's already doing a wonderful job coming up from Arizona. And of course, Sister Amanda making that move as well. So Seattle CAIR will be stronger than ever. And I must say, the two younger sisters, both Miriams, superb, superb, superb. So CAIR is in good hands and in good shape in Jimi Hendrix Town, Seattle. Indeed. And I want to salute the brother who received the award too from Tacoma, another doctor. It's just a blessing to be on the same platform as him. And I hope and pray that he and his family are stronger than ever.
Thank you, Dr. West. To get us started, Dr. West, we've seen unprecedented levels of protests in the past few years, standing up against police violence targeting the Black community. Muslim solidarity with Black liberation has been strong, and it has been championed especially by Black Muslims whose vision and leadership are just as foundational to Muslim communities as they are to Black communities. Our struggles for justice are interlinked. In places like Seattle, there have been real pushes to reform our policing systems and to bring forth some redress to the victims of state violence throughout the years. Yet still, we are facing unprecedented levels of systemic racism rearing its head in our society, with assaults on voting rights, as well as an unwillingness to discuss racism. For our audience here, could you talk about the importance of being essential partners in building a just future and standing up against the ongoing proliferation of systemic anti-Blackness, anti-Muslim, and anti-immigrant bigotry and xenophobia?
Well, I appreciate that question. Many dimensions, many facets, many aspects in that question. I want to begin with this fundamental commitment. I think we all must have to solidarity with each other. And my solidarity, what I mean, is based on a love, is based on a justice, is based on a deep care and a consideration of the humanity of each and every one of us, especially those who are hated, terrorized, and traumatized. That when I think of my own relation to the rich tradition of Islam, that as a Christian, I recognize I come from a people, a great people, a Black people in the midst of the American empire, who after being hated chronically for 400 years, keep dishing out love warriors. After being traumatized systemically, we keep dishing out wounded healers. And after being terrorized, we keep dishing out freedom fighters. Now, you think the greatest freedom fighter that we produced in the Black community was a Muslim. His name was Malcolm X. So that Islam is integral to the very experience of my own community, my own tradition, my own people. Our greatest athlete, Muhammad Ali, integral. The greatest hip hop artist, Rakim. I know people want to debate Rakim, Tupac, so forth and so on. I go with Tupac, Muslim brother to the car. And then John Coltrane would not exist without Naima, his wife, who was a strong, independent Muslim woman. She was the one who loved him enough to put pressure with him enough to stay committed to his vocation of blowing that saxophone and producing that Love Supreme and Giant Steps and Side Steps and all the other music that helps heal us. So that when we actually think of solidarity, it's not a matter of having to get up and go on the other side of town only. It's something that is constitutive of our own lives and our own communities, but then the moral dimension and the spiritual dimensions of caring for each other, respecting each other. You see, that's the connection I have to Imran and Amanda and yourself, Nimco and others. You see, that no matter what the situation is, when you're hated, you're traumatized, you're terrorized, you're not being treated right, you've got to be there with each other. Be it marching on the street, going to jail, raising our voices, being in dialogue with each other. We may not agree on everything philosophically, theologically, ideologically, at the moral and spiritual level. We're against idolatry. That's part of the three great historic religions. One could argue Judaism and Christianity and Islam. Against idolatry, against fetishes, keeping a focus on a God that is not only alive in our lives, but is connected to love, justice, mercy.
Thank you, Dr. West. That's so important. Recently, we've seen a major uptick in incidents targeting masjids, mosques here in Washington state and all throughout the United States, including multiple arsons. It's hard for the average person to wrap their heads around how these upticks in anti-Muslim bigotry manifest themselves, with many believing that this is merely a recent phenomenon or the result of Trumpism. But the reality is in this 21st century global war on terror, it has exported, the global war on terror has exported Islamophobia and provided a template for others to deploy this same rhetoric to oppress Muslim minorities, as is the case of Muslims in India, Kashmir, Uyghurs, and Rohingya. Can you talk a little bit about how Islamophobia is exported on a global scale?
Yeah, you know, this ugly hatred of precious Muslim brothers and sisters has a long history. It's a very long history. It goes all the way back to the 15th century, where the Muslims were characterized as a degraded other by Christian civilization. As we move into the 20th century, and it comes to the context of the American empire, you know, between 1945 and 1991, the major foes of the American empire in the eyes of the elites, in the eyes of those who rule, were communists and Black activists. But the collapse of the Soviet empire in 1991, it shifted to Muslims, Muslims associated with terrorism, Muslims associated with various forms of opposition to the American empire around the world and internally, you see. And it's been escalating ever since 2001, of course. And then it takes on a whole different set of dimensions, and it continues. So that you have, on the one hand, you've got the anti-Blackness, which is one of the foundations of the empire itself, with enslaved African peoples. And I know, coming from Somalia, the great the great country in Africa. You're part of that great tradition of engaging in critique and resistance. But it was also of progressives. So you had some progressive white folk, you had a whole host of progressive others who were trashed. And then the indigenous peoples, it's always their land, their culture, their civilization that was stolen, that was demonized, and the genocidal attack on them. In the last 25 years, the anti-Muslim, the hatred of precious Islamic brothers and sisters intensifies. And it's something that we have to keep a serious focus on. Now, of course, the anti-Jewish hatred is always there as well. It's much more complicated because as Jews, brothers and sisters gain access to positions of power, too often the dominant Jewish elites accommodate themselves to the imperial elites who are running things at the top. And those imperial elites tend to be a whole host of different colors, but disproportionately vanilla. So that we want to have a historical analysis of what is going on, even as we hold on to our moral and our spiritual standards of being in solidarity with whoever is being persecuted, Black, white, Jewish, Catholic, Muslims, Baha'i, whoever they are, because that's the best of the prophetic energies of Islam, the best of the prophetic energies of Christianity, the best of the prophetic energies of Judaism, which is what? To make sure you're spreading that hesed, that loving kindness, that steadfast love to the orphan, the widow, to the fatherless, to the motherless, to the oppressed, to the persecuted. Now, of course, we always have, Jews and Christians and Muslims who will accommodate themselves to imperial power, who will accommodate themselves to the worst of predatory capitalism, who will accommodate themselves to the worst of homophobia or transphobia or what have you. And we must engage in serious critique of our fellow religious folk, fellow Christians, fellow Jews, fellow Muslims. But when you're talking about an organization like CAIR that says we are open to solidarity with a variety of voices, forces, and institutions in the name of the best of our rich tradition of Islam. You see, that for me is crucial, because that's the kind of solidarity we have to have in the face of all of this hatred and greed and bigotry coming at us.
Thank you, Dr. West. Dr. West, you've protested for divestment from apartheid South Africa, for the rights of workers, for the humanity of any oppressed people, no matter who they are, no matter what color, gender, sexual orientation. You've been a fearless voice for human rights throughout your career, and someone who has spoken out in support for Palestinian freedom and has faced backlash and repercussions for doing so. CAIR has been a leading voice in the United States by challenging laws being passed on the state level to criminalize the right to boycott on behalf of Palestine. Can you speak on why it's so hard to have a robust, respectful conversation about the occupation? And why is the struggle for Palestinian liberation so central to the struggle against other settler colonialism globally?
Well, my dear sister, the great Henry James wrote a letter to the less great Robert Louis Stevenson, both powerful writers in a variety of different ways. And part of the letter said, "No theory is kind to us that cheats us of seeing." And what he was saying was, any set of lens that cheats us of seeing certain realities is cheating us. And we have been living in a framework when it comes to trying to understand the history of Israel, its founding, the Nakba and the catastrophe, the occupation of Palestinian lands and peoples. We've been living in a framework where it's been very difficult for people to really see rich Palestinian humanity, rich Palestinian dignity, rich Palestinian creativity, and ugly Palestinian suffering. vicious Israeli domination and occupation. So if you have a framework where you can't see it, it's very difficult to have a dialogue with people because they're not seeing things. It's very much like the history of America, not seeing Black humanity, and not seeing Black suffering. So when Martin Luther King Jr. presents himself as a critic of the empire, he's viewed as communist, he's viewed as a hater, and Malcolm X the same way, because you have these very narrow frameworks. And so part of what it is to be part of a prophetic tradition in Judaism and Christianity and Islam, or even with our precious secular brothers and sisters, how do you stay in contact with the humanity of people who are rendered invisible, given the frameworks that are in place? So I was blessed to know the great Edward Said. He's one of the greatest public intellectuals of the last 50 years, alongside Noam Chomsky and Stanley Aronowitz and a few others. And what was Edward Said saying? Your framework is too narrow, untruncated, and you're cheating folk. He said that to he said that to New York Times. He said that to ABC and NBC and the corporate media. He said that to the Academy. You can't stay in contact with the rich humanity of Palestinian peoples, which means you got deep anti-Palestinian blinders. And it's tied to the hatred of Palestinians, the traumatizing of Palestinians, the terrorizing of Palestinians, very much like Black folk in the United States, very much like precious brothers and sisters from the southern tip of Africa to the northern tip, from South Africa to Somalia. That's what it is to be part of a colonized framework. And when you're a settler colony, your assumption is that the settlers have the humanity, and those who are oppressed and dominated and occupied are less than human. And we're simply here to say at CAIR, that's a lie. The lies about our precious Palestinian brothers and sisters must be exposed. The lies about our precious African brothers and sisters must be exposed. The lies about Black brothers and sisters must be on and on and on. Indigenous peoples and so forth. Now people come along and say, oh, well, that sounds like political correctness and you all just trying to destabilize what's in place. Yes, we are. We're not just trying to destabilize it, we're trying to fundamentally transform it, because the suffering is not only indefensible, but is wrong morally and spiritually and politically. The status quo cannot stand. And we have seen, when I first met Brother Said in 1977, we've seen ways in which the framework has broadened and deepened because the lies have been exposed. The New York Times, so there was disputed territories. We'll never use the word occupy. No, it is an occupation. Tell the truth. Well, they finally started using it. Democratic Party won't use it yet. Many of us put pressure on under Brother Bernie and so forth. Let's write it into the platform. This is an occupation. It is illegal. It is wrong. It is barbaric. No, Democratic Party hasn't moved that far yet. We see. They still locked into that little narrow framework. Same was true with Jim Crow in the 1940s. How you gonna talk about you so progressive, FDR? Which he was for whites and others. But for Black folk, no, he wasn't gonna break the back of American apartheid, which is what Jim Crow was. He's not gonna break the back of Jane Crow, which is American apartheid. No, because he's got Southern elites in his party and he says he has a compromise. So too narrow. He's cheating himself. He's cheating the country. He's tied to mendacity. Mendacity hides criminality. The lies told about precious Palestinian brothers and sisters are tied to the crimes against precious Palestinian brothers and sisters. Now, it's true that, we can talk about Muslims in China whose humanity is being debased and so forth by Chinese imperial elites. We have to have a moral and spiritual critique across the board. But to talk just about the Israeli-Palestinian situation, to talk just about Americans' money, 4 billion and now another billion added, and yet hardly anybody can say a mumbling word when precious Palestinians, humans, women, men, and children are killed systemically. They can't say a mumbling word. Obama couldn't say a word. The Black Caucus couldn't say a word. The Progressive Caucus would hardly say a word. Thank God we got some from the squad now who will raise some of these issues. I'm very much for that. But it's a matter of courage. And it's a matter not of self-righteousness, but simply saying, you're cheating yourself. You're cheating your country. You're cheating any democratic prospects if you can't see the humanity, the creativity, the resistance, the resilience, but also the suffering and the social misery. And I mean, thank God that your generation, Sister Nemco, Professor Nemco, your generation has voices, Sisters Miriam and the others, and you got a number of young Jewish brothers and sisters know they've been lied to by their parents and their grandparents in terms of various discourses that don't allow the humanity and suffering of Palestinians to be manifest, various Zionist ideologies that lose sight of the rich humanity of Palestinians. Many of the young Jewish brothers and sisters are waking up, if not now, in other organizations. So again, it's a moral and a spiritual issue. And I wish actually that more Black folk would wake up. I think Black Palestinian solidarity is crucial. It's fundamental. And so when it comes to boycotts and sanctions and calls for disinvestments and so forth, the same response we had to South Africa, this is a non-violent form of resistance to make sure that the rich humanity of Palestinians is never, ever overlooked. It is affirmed, and that they have the same dignity, they have the same right to self-determination as any other peoples on the globe. I wish there were more such Black voices, but the problem is that it's still a taboo issue. You know, it's just people are so intimidated and they're scared to raise their voices. They think they'll be called anti-Semitic. They think they'll be called a hater of Jews when all you're trying to say is a Palestinian baby has exactly the same value as a precious Jewish baby, and a precious Jewish baby has exactly the same value as a precious and priceless Palestinian baby. That's a moral and spiritual commitment. And just to be committed to that puts you over against the narrow frameworks of trying to understand Israeli-Palestinian relations in the United States. And you got powerful interests at the top, very, very powerful interests at the top. And it's hard too, my dear sister, for many people to grasp the fundamental fact that for over 2,000 years, our precious Jewish brothers and sisters have been dehumanized and trashed and devalued. And so they have an underdog mentality, and it's understandable because anti-Jewish violence and hatred has been chronic, especially in Christian civilizations, but also others. But when they're in a situation when they're top dog, tied to the biggest top dog, the American empire in the world, it's hard for them to shift from that underdog mentality of 2,000 years to new circumstances in which you're the one that has nuclear power. You're the one that get the $4 billion. You're the one that's trying to get, that has the dome. You're the one that's dominating. You're the one that's occupying. And you're so used to understanding yourself as oppressed, dominated, and occupied. Oh, that's a shift. It is a shift. And that's a challenge to us because we can understand how difficult it is for people to understand that shift. And yet the shift is something that has to be grasped. That we know that oppressed people, when they become oppressors, can become just as cruel as the folk who oppress them. It's a human thing. I've seen it in Africa. I've seen it in Latin America. I've seen it in the Middle East. I've seen it in Asia. And so that's why moral and spiritual standards have to be the key. And that's why CAIR is so very important. And that's why the work that you are doing and the others is so significant.
So important. Thank you so much for that, Dr. West. I wanted to touch on something that you mentioned about the youth and the youth, inspiring the youth. I wanted to ask what advice you have for youth that are critically oriented in the audience, who aren't interested in the status quo, who are concerned about issues of justice and about suffering here and around the world. What advice do you have for them? How do you, what should they continue to do to stay motivated?
Yes, you know, I think the greatest public intellectual of the 20th century in the American empire was W.B. Du Bois. And he actually was agnostic, but he was very spiritual. He was religiously musical because he could tease out the great insights and witnesses of religious traditions, but he remained very secular in many ways, tied to the authority of science. And was agnostic when it came to God. So he and I had disagreements in that regard. But Du Bois raised 4 fundamental questions. And I think these questions are in some ways a kind of love letter to the younger generation. And the love letter had to do with, how do you keep loving truth, condition of truth to allow suffering to speak? How do you keep loving beauty? And there is no beauty without wrestling with terror. How do you love goodness? You can't understand goodness unless you understand its resilience and resistance against evil. And how do you understand the holy? Over against the devilish and the demonic, the indifference and the callousness. Now, his question was, how does integrity face oppression? So when you think of Palestinian resistance against Israeli occupation, you think of landless peasants in Brazil, resistance against greedy property owners. When you think of great freedom fighters fighting against ugly white supremacists, when you think of women fighting against patriarchal elites and so forth, the fundamental question is, how does integrity face that? Intellectual integrity, truth-telling, spiritual integrity, witness bearing, to be a witness. And sometimes that's martyr, because the Greek word has the same meaning, martyr and witness, you see. Sometimes you're willing to live, sometimes you're willing to die, which simply means you're willing to give everything to a great cause bigger than you. If you're a good Muslim, there is no God other than Allah. That's your vocation. It's different than your profession. That's your calling. That's different than just your career. You see. How does integrity face oppression? Intellectual integrity, moral integrity, spiritual integrity. Second question, what does honesty do in the face of deception? You think about empire, imperialist lies. You think about race, white supremacist lies. You think about gender, male supremacist lies. You think about economic systems, whatever ism they are. Sometimes they become the communism, wonderful ideals, ends up producing too much repression. Capitalism, preoccupation with freedom and liberty. No, you're generating domination and occupation and exploitation tied to greed, especially for those at the top. You have to be honest. Honesty has subversive consequences when you follow it all the way through. Because if you shatter the deception, you shatter the lies, and then you got self-deception, the lies you tell about yourself. That's a perennial process of learning how to die in order to learn how to live, to kill the lies inside of you so that you can become a more truthful person, a more honest person. So you got integrity in the face of oppression. You got honesty in the face of deception. The third, decency in the face of insult. When you listen to our brother, Dr. Abdul, sitting in that car, and you saw his response to the vicious attack on the Islamic institution, you could feel integrity, honesty, decency. And that's why people who are Christians and Judaic and secular could be in solidarity with that kind of assault because it's indecent. And we have to call it so, and then put our voices, bodies, organizations, institutions in solidarity with our dear brother and our Muslim brothers and sisters. He does exactly the same thing when Christian churches are attacked, when Jewish synagogues are attacked, when trade union institutions are attacked, when other institutions that are being viciously assaulted. Here comes that cloud of witnesses saying, in the name of integrity and honesty and decency as filtered through our traditions, we stand in solidarity. Now, the last question is in some ways the most difficult one, my dear sister, that Du Bois raised. What does courage do in the face of brute force? Because you must be able to come to terms with brute force and violence and coercion. Those are the hounds of hell. That hatred, that greed, that hypocrisy have a public face of violence. The violence in Gaza, the violence in the West Bank, the violence under apartheid, the violence at the workplace, the violence women have to come to terms with at home, the violence of the street of our precious gays and lesbians and others. What do you do in the face of that brute force? Courage. You don't give in, you don't cave in, you don't give up. And courage is the enabling virtue for all the other virtues. You can't be a Muslim and be a coward. You can't be a Christian and be a coward. You can't be a member of Judaism and be a coward. Because when they're calling for love and for justice and for decency and for honesty, that means you got to be willing to cut against the grain. And courage is about what? Taking a risk. Courage is about what? Cutting against the grain, being in but not of the world, in the language of my own Black church. You see, where we were always told, if the kingdom of God is within you, then everywhere you go, you ought to leave a little heaven behind. And what does that mean? That means that when you're leaving heaven behind in a hellish world, you're going to have a lot of enemies. You're going to have to deal with oppression. You're going to have to deal with deception. You're going to have to deal with assaults and attacks. You're going to have to deal with brute force. But if you hold on to integrity, honesty, decency, and courage, and then have solidarity, so that with the CAIR folk in Washington, yes, I'm with my brothers and sisters there. That's exactly right. They're mistreating indigenous peoples in Arizona. I'm with, if you're messing with the poor whites in Appalachia, I'm with you. If you're messing with Jews in Russia, I'm with you. If you're messing with Asians in Chicago, I'm with you. Why? Because like CAIR Washington, like CAIR at the national level, we are a council of human relations about justice, equality, decency, and honesty. We do it in the name of our Islamic tradition because we're Muslims. Yes, how beautiful, how magnificent. All others will do it in the name of their Christian tradition. That's what I hold on to. The forces are getting thinner all the time, but we won't go into that right now. You can do it in the name of your secular traditions, but it's that, those are the things that bring us together: the commitment, the integrity, honesty, decency, courage, with the moral and spiritual dimensions as filtered through our own particular traditions.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you so much. Professor West, this concludes our time together. I feel like it went by so quickly. I want to take a moment to thank you so much for joining us today and for imparting your wisdom on us. Thank you for all you do to support CAIR's tradition of excellence, community service, and the relentless pursuit of justice and civil rights for Muslims and for everyone in our country and beyond. thank you again. It was truly an honor to have this conversation with you, Dr. West.
I was blessed to be in conversation with you. And anytime my dear brother Imran calls, I come running, and similarly so with yourself. And now with the young sisters, Miriam and Miriam too.
Yes.
And brother Dr. Abdul, absolutely. And Amanda, you all are forces for good.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you so much, Dr. West. As we continue with our program, we want to recognize all the donations that have come in so far. I want to bring back Imran, our executive director, once again to give us an update on how close we are to reaching our fundraising goal. Imran, take it away.
Wow, that was an amazing, amazing conversation, Nimco and Dr. West. Thank you so much for being with us, and I'm going to hold you to it. Once things get better with the COVID situation, we're going to have you up here to our new office in Seattle and break bread together. So, definitely with our youth and the rest of the community. And thank you, Dr. Abdul Hakim as well. Yeah, I mean, as we spoke last week with Imam Khalid Latif, he was, very ahead of the curve. He said, prepare to have your minds blown by Dr. West. And I think with this conversation here, there's going to be so many gems that, as we think about it over the course of the next few days and the rest of the week, it's just going to really be brought out in terms of how much wisdom he shed upon us in our community. So thank you once again, Dr. West. And there's so much to really think about here, but we're here for, to support the work of CAIR Washington. And he did such a great job of also, talking about why this work is so important. I want everybody to take out your phones if you have your phone with you, because I think that's the easiest way to just whip out that phone right now. If you take your phone and you text CAIRWA, CAIRWA to 44321, that will send you a message and that will take you to our donation page. I'm sure Katie will drop the link to our attendees in the chat as well, and we'll probably open up the chat for folks to donate as well. It's easy as going to Apple Pay and to going to Google Pay and clicking the button one time, but we do need your help towards the end of this year. You see the amazing potential that exists with this organization. You have amazing cohort of youth that is coming up through our youth advisory committee, and we're investing. I mean, during this time of a pandemic, when most of us are working virtual, we want to invest in space. Who invests in space during this difficult time when people are so virtual? But we're thinking ahead. We're thinking, once the pandemic is over, we want to have those spaces for our younger generation, Mariam and Mariam, to come together and hold trainings for the up and coming youth advisory committee members in our new office that's going to be moved into in the next couple of weeks. You've seen in our last event, when talking with Brianna about the Afghan crisis and how dire the situation is in terms of legal assistance that's needed in the state, and that there's such a shortfall of attorneys that are helping our resettled Afghan brothers and sisters with legal help. And CAIR Washington is helping lead that effort with our Afghan Crisis Response Clinic, filing these cases for asylum, filing these cases for humanitarian parole. We need that support from the community to ensure that we're getting support for the next generation. You talk about the level of hate that we're facing. Dr. West talks so eloquently about just these difficult times that we lived in. And this is about, this is not about coincidence. It's not just about being outraged when you see something happening to your community. How does that change really happen? You have to have organizations like CAIR Washington that stand up for our community, that know how the media works, know how the media cycle works, build those relationships with these media outlets. People were not even talking about these different mosques that were being attacked, unfortunately, until organizations like CAIR Washington really brought attention to this and said, hey, look, our institutions are being targeted. This has happened throughout American history, by the way. I grew up in Auburn, Alabama. That's where I was born. And in my backyard, just 100 miles away from where I live, that's where Black churches were bombed. I got a chance just a few years ago to visit the church in Birmingham where 4 little girls were murdered. And you saw during those times as well, Black churches across the United States were constantly being targeted. And we can't compare the plight of Black Americans to what's happening now in terms of the level of hate that we're facing, because nobody's going to be able to compare that. But you can see that the media at that time and the larger society at that time were not paying close attention to what was happening, and that gave a mandate to individuals. They felt empowered and emboldened to go and make these types of heinous attacks against our Black brothers and sisters. And you see this happening with Christchurch, New Zealand, just a few years ago, with 55 Muslims being killed. You saw Quebec City where somebody walked in with a gun and started spraying bullets, where 6 Muslims were being killed. You saw this happening in Pittsburgh and Poway with our Jewish brothers and sisters as well. So if we don't have strong voices who are unafraid to stand up during these difficult times, then who's going to stand up for our community? CAIR Washington is that organization that's going to stand up. And we're not trying to raise funds here just so CAIR Washington can become a powerful, organization. We're doing this because this is my community. These are the mosques that my kids go to, school at, who go to evening programs that I attend with my family. This is Nimco's community. Why did she join CAIR Washington? It's not because, I want to build the power of an organization. It's because I believe that we need a vehicle to make this community stronger. So we're going to open it up for donations here. Our year-end goal was $200,000. We're at about $50,000 right now. And we'd love to see if anybody in the chat wants to send any pledges over. I know a lot of people, Brother Tariq and another sister have sent through some online donations as well. We've gotten a few checks in the mail here. So we're hovering at around $50,000 as we get to the end of the year. We're not going to necessarily do a live fundraiser, but I did want to tell you how you can give to CAIR Washington, because there's a lot of different ways. I know a lot of our brothers and sisters here are, employed in the tech industry, and that you have matching programs. And that is one of the greatest ways that you're able to support the work that CAIR Washington does. We are set up through Benevity. So if you have a matching fund through, let's say, Microsoft or Google and many of these other companies that are out there, we are set up in those programs. So you can double your donation if you work for one of these major organizations that does employee matching. So consider doing it that way. We take stock donations as well. So we have a TD Ameritrade account that you can, if you are getting towards the end of the year and you want to donate stock, get that tax deduction, that's a way for you to donate as well. You can donate online through our website, cairwa.org. There's an easy website that you can set it up there. You can do it on a monthly basis. So, let's say you don't want to, do it all in one lump sum, but you want to be a consistent sort of champion of justice. Donate $25 a month. That's $300 over the course of the year. That helps sustain the work that CAIR Washington does. If we talking about that, you can text CAIRWA from your phone. 44321 is the number, and text CAIRWA to that number. It'll take you to the donation site. Let's see if we have any more donations coming in. I know we have the Give Lively website as well coming up. So yeah, we have a few more donations that are coming in. Looks like the meter is ticking up there. We're up to 47,410. I know that we have a generous donor who has pledged $10,000 today. So Jazakallah khair, brother. I know that that's a huge help for the work that we do, and I know that that's going to be coming in. So that takes us up to short of about $60,000. And I know as we get to the end of the year, and we have our different channels of donating, whether it's through your employer portal or through these, different Fidelity funds or Charles Schwab funds, they're going to come in through different means. But definitely, as you get before December 31st, do something today. If you have your phone today and you text that number 44321, even if it's $5, I think we benefited all from hearing this amazing lineup of speakers. It was an honor to hear from our youth advisory committee, this next generation of folks that are coming up. Dr. West, this is going to resonate for a really long time as well. So continue those donations coming in. You can donate $1, you can donate $5, but give something, because you know that this organization is out there doing some amazing work. With that, I just want to thank every single person here today who attended. This was an amazing event. Dr. West, thank you so much for attending. And I know NIMCO may have a few more words, and if you want to close us out, let us know.
Apologies, I was muted. On behalf of the entire CAIR Washington team, it has been an absolute honor to have you all here this afternoon for our annual gala, which was done virtually again this year due to the pandemic. We thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate your time, and we hope that all of you and your families are doing well and staying safe. This afternoon has been a time for reflection, for celebration, and for planning for the year ahead and beyond. We celebrated the successes of our community and what we want to achieve. We talked about what we want to achieve for the coming year with all of your support. Again, this is why we really stuck on and chose this theme for tonight, our community and our strength, because we wanted to highlight both. I do want to thank Dr. Cornel West again. Thank you so much for your amazing words, for your wisdom. And thank you so much for donating. We hope you all have a great rest of your afternoon. Assalamu alaikum, and may peace be with all of you. Thank you.
For more than 30 years, Amana Mutual Funds have provided halal investment vehicles serving the unique needs of the Muslim community. Discover how you can align your investments with your principles in a retirement, health, or education savings account, or invest for Hajj. To obtain this and other important information in a prospectus or summary prospectus, please visit amanafunds.com or call toll-free 1-888-732-6262. Please read the prospectus and consider an investment's objectives, risks, charges, and expenses carefully before investing. Investing involves risk, including possible loss of principal. The Amana funds limit the securities they purchase to those consistent with Islamic principles. This limits opportunities and may affect performance.
Thank you all. It was a great event, and yeah, that was amazing. Thank you so much, Dr. West.
Thank you. Thank you.
And we will